Support WrestleTalk!
Enable notifications.
I think it's safe to say that plenty of kids dream of growing up to become a wrestler in the WWE. Few of them ever actually try. The trying at all was pretty much where I stopped, and fewer still actually make it into the company. In fact, many have to bust their asses to make their mark on the indies before that contract ever drops. Then it's a case of working your way up through NXT to the main roster, and then it's fighting tooth and claw for even the slightest hint of a push. And all the while, you gotta hope that the WWE sorting hat doesn't drop down from the ceiling and proclaim 205 live, because that is where obscurity goes to hide, sadly. And even on top of all of that, if you do finally get your push, it could be all over in a matter of moments. Because WWE has made it a habit in 2018 of criminally wasting talent. And you know what? We think those guys and girls should really consider leaving in 2019. I'm Laurie Blake, and here are 10 wrestlers that should quit WWE in 2019. The Revival. In NXT, the pairing of Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder were heralded as the second coming of the Brainbusters. The old school duo were a throwback to a time when tag team wrestling was an art form, and the well-oiled machine cliche was actually kind of applicable to them. Since being called up to the main roster though, their fortunes have tumbled dramatically. The cause was not exactly helped by injuries that ruled out both men consecutively last year, but there are no such excuses in 2018. So what's the problem, fellas? The problem is that they have been given the role of elevated jobbers, used to put over whichever random doubles act WWE want to push in a given week. Being the B team to the B team does not make you the A team, because the Revival should be the standard bearers of this division and not fodder for lesser lights. In Japan or on the independent scene, you could see this duo become the best tag team in the world, and clearly that is never going to happen under the WWE umbrella. Plus, there's this whole flirtations with the Young Bucks about a match on Twitter and the potential of a move to All Elite Wrestling if that does become a thing in January. Looks like the F the Revival joke has changed its meaning. Finn Balor. Finn Balor looked like one of the few people set to transfer his NXT success to the WWE main roster following his call-up in 2018, especially when he became the first ever Universal Champion within months of debuting on Raw. Unfortunately, injury caused him to vacate the title and miss 8 months of action, but he was still somehow immensely popular on his return, as the endless stream of Balor cosplayers present in any WWE show proves, but his push sadly was over. And Balor has rarely been anywhere near the top title picture since. He's now forced to waste away in pointless and damaging programs against the likes of Bray Wyatt. Before WWE, the Irishman spent the majority of his career in NJPW and could easily slot back into the fold over there as a much bigger star than when he left. He would also be a perfect fit for All Elite Wrestling if that comes to fruition, given his connections to the former Bullet Club. The Good Brothers. The exact same can be said for Balor's former Bullet Club buddies, the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. The duo were obviously a top act in New Japan as part of Bullet Club, but have been reduced to bit part players in 2018, rarely wrestling on SmackDown Live and almost never appearing on pay-per-view. And it's a shame, because the pair are a really strong tag team and are capable of putting on totally absorbing matches, and they have wonderful abs. But the fact is, they've simply never been afforded the opportunity to demonstrate that in their 3 years with WWE. So it'd be no surprise at all to see them club together with Balor and leave in 2019. Kevin Owens. Very few NXT call-ups have enjoyed the sort of immediate success that Kevin Owens had when he first debuted on Raw in 2015. Owens attacked John Cena and then proceeded to cleanly beat the untouchable Superman at Elimination Chamber in what was a belter of a match. Owens then had a great first year on the main roster, mixing up with the top guys and capturing Intercontinental Gold. Then at the back end of 2016, he formed a celebrated union with Chris Jericho and became Universal Champion, partly due to Finn vacating the title and mostly thanks to an assist from Triple H. He was then the top guy on Raw. Sadly, a defeat to Goldberg was on the cards, and that was the start of Owens' decline. Fortunately, Owens remains extremely popular with the fans though, and has a far greater name value than he did prior to joining WWE, so he could be an absolute difference maker elsewhere, and he could also sell those panda shirts again because I love those. Chad Gable. This accomplished amateur wrestler looked like the second coming of Kurt Angle when he and Jason Jordan started making names for themselves as American Alpha in NXT. But as with so many on this list, the transition from NXT to WWE proper proved to be a difficult one. Which is a shame because Gable is easily one of the most exciting wrestlers on the WWE roster right now, yet most likely because of his diminutive size and the fact that it wouldn't be believable for him to have played Kurt Angle's son, he played second fiddle to Jason Jordan and is now paired up with the equally misused Bobby Roode, and even a run with the Raw tag titles won't fix that because they are basically worthless. Gable's amateur wrestling abilities would make him a very interesting addition to the New Japan roster. Shinsuke Nakamura. The signing of New Japan ace Shinsuke Nakamura was one of WWE's most surprising in recent memory. The charismatic and ultra-flamboyant proponent of strong style was so opposite to the typical WWE signings that there was this sense of great intrigue about how the promotion would handle him. The fears were initially alleviated somewhat by Nakamura's superb NXT debut against Sami ZAYN in 2016 and his impressive run as NXT champion later that year. Then in 2017, Nakamura was brought up to the main roster to much fanfare, many plaudits, much aplomb. Both treated like and received like a star, Nakamura looked set to be a major figure on SmackDown Live. Instead, he was used to put over Jinder Mahal on multiple occasions. Nakamura did go on to win the Royal Rumble and faced AJ Styles at WrestleMania, but his stock with the fans had fallen to such a degree that WWE just decided to turn him heel after the match. That magical aura that was surrounding face Nakamura had been lost. Because it turns out WWE clearly had no idea how to book a Japanese star as a babyface, so they reverted to their xenophobic worst, having him portray the role of a sneaky Japanese heel. It was basically the old Pearl Harbor reference, but in 2018, people. Nakamura's main roster run has not been terrible, but it's not exactly set the world on fire either. And clearly WWE see him now as a mid-card act, which is not good enough for a man that was on top of the world in New Japan, and who could easily return with a new legion of Western fans and conquer that same world again. Sami ZAYN. Indie standout El Generico became NXT standout Sami ZAYN. Where have we seen a luchador become a weird ginger man before? And Sami, for a while, was one of the best baby faces in the business. Nobody came close to him when it came to sympathy selling and getting audiences emotionally invested in his matches. Sadly, an injury suffered during his surprise Raw debut in Montreal against John Cena set Sami back considerably, because by the time he returned to NXT and was then called up to the main roster, Vince McMahon had basically already decided that he was injury prone or not marketable. And the way he was booked certainly suggested that, because even Zayn's heel turn and union with Kevin Owens helped him for a little bit until he had that program with Bobby Lashley and his sisters, and that forced Sami to take a few old steps backwards, didn't it? Which is basically the story of his WWE career. So when Zayn returns from his current injury, it'll be interesting to see how WWE handles him. Chances are this lengthy layoff isn't exactly going to help him, and he'll find himself mired back in the mid-card. So perhaps it's time for El Generico to hand over management of that orphanage and lace up the boots once more. HIDEO ITAMI, the man who took Japan by storm while wrestling as Kenta in Pro Wrestling Noah, has been lost in the talent graveyard that is known as 205 Live. Because although 205 Live is frequently one of the most entertaining WWE television shows of the week, so few people watch it, less than NXT UK and the shows like Ride Along, that anything that happens there is like having a dark match in a black hole. Itami also took his time to nest into the WWE way of doing things, but has really actually found his stride this year as a vicious heel. And on occasion, the old Kenta surfaces, and those glimpses have been wonderfully tantalizing. But he does really seem destined to bounce around in 205 Live forever, either until injury or old age catch up with him. You got to get out of there, Itami, and then we'll respect you. Asuka. It is perhaps not exactly a coincidence that Asuka is the third Japanese name on this list. Her career in WWE followed a similar pattern to her countrymen. She came into the promotion with much fanfare following a very successful and celebrated spell in Japan, and then she started hot in NXT before falling foul of the woeful main roster booking. Somehow, in just over a year, Asuka has gone from invincible killer who went unbeaten in NXT for over 500 days while the NXT Women's Champion to a part-time player on SmackDown who did two pay-per-view jobs to Carmella in 2018. So ultimately, WWE has failed her. Yeah, winning the first ever Women's Royal Rumble was a big deal, and a match with Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania was really strong, but the result of it all was kinda damaging, because losing her unbeaten streak hurt Asuka more than the figure eight. Surely WWE felt like they must have had no choice though, because prior to that, they were struggling to know what to do with her, as the formulaic 50-50 booking template does not really work with winning streaks and unbeaten runs. So by the time Evolution rolled around this year, Asuka, the unbeaten Empress of Tomorrow, was in a throwaway battle royal. The question of whether Asuka would be better off outside of WWE, though, is a different matter, because there are not a great deal of places for female wrestlers to go out to make significant money outside of the WWE. However, if the proposed AEW promotion has a women's division, which I imagine it will, then perhaps that could be an option for the Empress of Tomorrow. Or maybe she fancies her chances in the Impact Knockouts division. The Undertaker. Unlike everyone else on this list, the reasons that The Undertaker should leave WWE are not to pursue potential options elsewhere, but rather so that he can preserve his own legacy. At WrestleMania in 2017, it looked like the defeat to Roman Reigns in the main event was the passing of a torch moment to WWE's new chosen one. Undertaker left all of his gear in the ring and he walked off into the sunset, by which I mean he went backstage. Either way, it was a memorable and moving moment. Then, for no good reason, bar money, he came back earlier this year. At Mania, he defeated John Cena in short order. Then he wrestled again on WWE's trio of international shows. So you've got Greatest Royal Rumble, Super Showdown, and Crown Jewel. And in all four of these big-time appearances, Undertaker looked like a shell of his former self. The Phenom has a reputation as one of the all-time greats, and rightly so. However, in order for him to preserve that and not go from the dead man to walking dead, he needs to hang up the boots for good. Because WWE turns to Undertaker every year at WrestleMania due to its own shortcomings in creating new stars. So perhaps, if Undertaker quits for good, he'll force their hand into remedying that problem. So those are some people who should quit WWE. What about the folks who have already been given the old heave-ho? Well, there's a video for that already, and you can watch it by clicking on the screen now, and give us a subscribe to stay up to date on all of the latest wrestling news. I've been El Fakador, and that was Lucha.